So, how do you think this is going to play out?
Chaotically.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the W podcast, Beyond the W podcast. What are we calling it now? I still haven't figured it out. I'm still working on possibly remixing the name, but welcome back to our pod. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being so patient with us. Today's episode is a very special episode, obviously, because probably the most important news involving not just the WNBA but women's sports has finally broke, and we're just here to just talk about it and just give our honest, in real time thoughts about it. Today we are joined by our entire Beyond the W family. So we have Lamar Carter, who is our photographer, videographer, all the visuals. He is the visual. And we have Akeem, who is our staff writer. Everything that you have seen written on our site over the last God knows how long has been from this amazing mastermind here. And me, of course, Laureen. Everyone calls me Lo. I am the founder and editor of Beyond the W. And we're here just to talk about the WNBA CBA. First of all, round of applause to the lady
Yay!
of
Oh, let's
the
go.
WNBPA for not backing down, for not giving up, for keeping their foot on necks and making sure that they got everything that they asked for or as close to everything that they wanted. Because this CBA is completely different from the previous CBA. And this also sets the stage for CBAs going forward across all women's sports. And personally, I really think that anything women related or rights related, right? Whether it's women's rights, rights whatever, any kind of specific minority group can take some kind of inspiration from what these ladies have fought for, what they got, and people can apply it to their respective industries. It doesn't have to be sports, it could be any industry, no matter what. If you're fighting for more, if you work for a union job and you're trying to fight for more coverage, benefits, tenure, whatever it is, you could take a page out of the fight that these ladies just won. So, before we dive into the specifics of the CBA, I just want you guys is like, actually, no, before we get there, let's talk about the timeline of this CBA, and then I'm going to get your thoughts. Cool. Okay. So, don't mind me looking at my other screen right now. So, basically, at the top of this week, the CBA was officially voted on and ratified at the top of this week. Now, obviously, they opted out of their CBA early. They had like an option to opt out early, and they all decided to opt out at the end of no, before the end of the last season. I want to say probably like before the start of last season. I think they said that they were going to opt out of it. And I think the hope was to have a new CBA agreement by the end of last season. Um, but that wasn't going to happen, judging by how far opposite sides of the spectrum both parties were at the time. And so it's finally ratified and at the top of this week. So I want to get you guys' thoughts on just the whole journey of getting from them opting out of the CBA to now having a new one set to be put in place this season.
It really is just remarkable just when you look at everything that the players were able to get from this CBA. Because we've seen in other sports, we've seen previously where unions have just decided, okay, we're going to fold because we want a season. The WNBPA did anything but fold. And like you said, this is definitely in many ways a blueprint for future CBAs that, that unions and other women's sports can definitely use as far as, being able to get what it is that, they're looking for. Because really, we're in a period with the WNBA where really and truly it's definitely a boom period. I mean, there's a lot more zeros going into the W's direction. I mean, you got all of these new streaming deals and new TV deals. There's new expansion teams coming down the pike. So it's really a situation where there's a lot more money flowing into the WNBA's direction. And the players looked at that and they were like, you know what? We deserve our piece of the pie, because I think the players understood that they're really the ones that are driving most of this growth. So it's a
Right.
situation where absolutely they definitely deserved everything that they got out of the CBA, and I'm glad that they got it.
I You pretty much summed it up for me. What about you, Lamar?
I mean, I agree with that. I think back to NECA, obviously president of the Players Association. I think she was on First Take either earlier this week or late last week talking about it, and what she said kind of lines up with what Akeem said. They didn't back down against the league because they said, listen, they have more to lose than we do as players, because if we don't play, speaking as the players, they don't make money. There's no season.
Mhm.
You know, God forbid, worst case scenario, they went on strike or there was a lockout. If push came to shove, the players, the star players, and even some mid tier players, or even some of the rookies could have went overseas, which is crazy that the one thing that we always had consternation about, that the players had to go overseas to make extra money and then come back here, would have been their saving grace. Whereas
Yeah.
if the NBA was in that spot, when they had their lockout, they were playing at Winston-Salem or something, just
Right.
doing runs. So they could have figured it out. But think about all of these owners that pay tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in expansion fees to get into the game, and you have two expansion teams that haven't even started yet. Like, the
Mhm.
momentum would have hurt everyone, but I think it would have hurt the owners a little bit more, because again, you can make nothing if the players don't show up.
Yeah.
And they understood the moment, and they truly looked out for the past, the present, and the future
Mhm.
of their league. And I think their CBA, in combination with what the NWSL did in their CBA, I think a year or two ago, that's definitely going to set the bar high for all women's sports moving forward. So, brava to them. I was really proud that they got it done. Um, internally scared, but I'm just a natural worry wart. But happy that they got it done. I'm happy we're gonna have a lot to celebrate on top of it being the 30th season of the league. And
Yeah.
I'm glad to see these women get paid because they deserve it.
So both of you guys, I agree with every point that you made, and then I also want to add too, with the 30th anniversary of the league being this year and the momentum that they ended last season with. I think that them coming to this agreement is like the perfect time. But then there's also a small part of me, I think I tweeted about this as well, like where even though this could have been agreed upon way sooner and wrapped up before the end of the year, I'm also happy to kind of waited this long, and it kind of because the news came out the day before maybe the tournament started,
Mhm.
and between the tournament and the start of the season is like the busiest season in women's sports as far as like you got the tournament and it goes right into the WNBA draft and then it goes right into training camp and now with the expansion draft as well. So now we have two teams drafts to like look after and the lotteries and everything like that. So I think it's an extra added marketing that they didn't necessarily probably think they would get out of it. Like, I'm not saying that they intentionally waited till the last minute. I'm just saying that it's providing an unexplained, unplanned extra momentum boost into the season, also being the 30th year of this league. And overall, I think, and we're gonna dive into the terms and the different, like, key points and other parts of the agreement, but I'm just happy to see what they got, right? I can't compare a sports CBA to anything that I've been to. The closest thing I've been to is I worked a union job before. And Lamar, I'm sure you can relate as well, working for, city, county, school, colleges, whatever. And when you're a part of a union, you also have a collective bargaining agreement that your union itself negotiates on behalf of employees with whatever governing body you work under. It could be your city, it could be your county, it could be your state, it could and oftentimes, even though they have the general population in mind, they have to keep the general population in mind. So there may not be room for extra nuance, right? So certain specific things that we've seen in the CBA, you wouldn't see in like a big union CBA, especially unions that have hundreds of thousands of members, right? They're going to tackle the general issues that a lot of people may see, but certain kind of unique things that might be unique to a specific region. It might be specific unique to a specific, you may not see that necessarily, or a specific group of people. And I feel like when I see the CBA, I feel like they took everybody's like into consideration, every little thing into consideration. I'm sure there were certain things that probably didn't make it, but seeing what did make it was like, oh, they were listening. And that's what a union is supposed to do. It's supposed to listen to everyone. Even let's take Derica's example, what you call it for an example, as an example, her situation with when she was part of the Aces, right?
Mm.
Maybe other players who were mothers did not experience specifically what she experienced. But what she said that she experienced, it's not that it can't happen again with another team and another coach 20 years down the line, right? So I feel like putting that into the CBA sets the tone like, hey, this unique situation happened and we're not going to have let's make sure we're going to make sure it never happens again. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
that says a lot about the union, and I think it says a lot about the leaders of the union and their intentionality going into these negotiations. Like they really try to represent everybody specifically and as a collective. And I think I'm just so happy. I'm just so happy. I'm happy that the season is because I ain't gonna hold y'all. I was ready for a lockout. I was like, listen, we're gonna take our time with content. A lockout is in the midst. Like I was not anticipating them. Because and it's no shade to the WNBA that we love and enjoy, but evidence has suggested sometimes in the past that they may not have seized the moment sometimes.
Hmm.
So I was kind of cautiously optimistic where I'm like hoping that they would, but I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't because previous years the mark has been missed. So, seeing them basically come through at 11:59 PM, like, when you turn your paper in at 11:59 PM, that's what they did. And they had it at the and 'cause it was literally at the right time because the rest of the season can now go through as planned. We don't have to move extra dates. I mean, probably like the drafts and everything are gonna be a little bit more last minute, but training camp is still on schedule, you know, because think about it, like, imagine the ripple effect now, like, you gotta now move games around, and they already play in such a tight window because of they don't really overlap, especially teams that are part of an NBA family as well, like, and arenas have concerts already pre-planned from years prior. Like, imagine the chaos that would have caused if they would have agreed on this CBA in June. It would have
Not
been
to mention with it being a FIBA year too.
it's a FIBA year, it's a lot going on. It's too much going on. It's the World Cup. I mean, if we have the World Cup, which that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But if it's a team playing in a World Cup city, like a I mean, not that necessarily it would affect anything, but so many things could affect things. So,
Yeah.
um, I'm just happy that they finally got to it. And speaking of getting to it, let's get into the details of said CBA, shall we? I'm going to bring up so what we are reading now is a document that was shared officially from the WNBA and WNBPA that was shared. You guys have seen the press release and the details online, and many of our peers in media. And that's another thing too. Before I even get to this, shout outs to WNBA media.
Hmm.
Shout
Absolutely.
out to WNBA media. Like, honestly, let's take a minute because I don't comment a lot. I like to be incognito now way more than I was in the past. And I see how sometimes WNBA media gets a bad rep. And oftentimes it might be from fans that might have just gotten here. I'm sorry. They might have just gotten here.
Mm.
And I don't know everyone's name or publication off the top of my head, but there are peers of ours who were literally waiting outside,
Camping out.
camping out to the wee hours, to the last minute. They have been covering this before it even got down to the wire when it was just conversations of them possibly opting out. To the members of media that have literally sat here and covered this through and through and gotten every little bit of information and shared the crumbs on the floor that they could, shout outs to you guys because honestly, like these kind of negotiations can be very tight-lipped, can be very closed off. The WNBA media space as a whole is still very small, so there's not a lot of insiders. There's not a lot of leaks that you will see usually with bigger, the male dominant sports within this country. So they gave us what they could, and I salute and honor you guys because you guys are keeping this media space in women's sports and women's in the WNBA specifically alive. And I just salute y'all. Like y'all the real MVPs of this whole thing. Like it's a WNBPA and it's WNBA media. Like y'all did your big one. Like kudos to y'all.
Absolutely.
If I had a glass
Absolutely.
of wine, I would have a share. Stanley Cup it up for y'all. Okay. So
Right.
So again, I'm looking at the details that was shared to WNBA media, or to media in general from the WNBA/WNBA. So we are gonna go section by section, or is there any? Let me ask you guys: is there any part of this that you want to start off, or is any part of it that sticks out to you the most? It doesn't have to be in any kind of order, but something that resonates with you, or you're like, yo, like this right here is it.
Mm. I think the thing that really resonated with me was, and there are definitely several things to look at,
Mhm.
um but the fact that, remember, with the negotiations it looked like that the players were going for, I think, around like 30% of the gross revenues, and they ended up getting 20%.
Mhm.
So that's still, a jump, and it's one of those situations where the fact that there's enough money that's there to actually trigger the revenue sharing, and starting off at 20%, it may not have been the 30, but the 20% is pretty satisfying from a player's perspective. Also, the jump in the salary cap, that's another thing that certainly got to me. When I think about
Mhm.
the jump in the salary cap, I mean, going from 1.5 million, a mere 1.5 million, to 7 million. Now I know
Mhm.
that when you look at it in the context of, say, some of the quote unquote bigger sports, that may not necessarily be all that, but 1.5 to 7 is pretty big. So that's something that's going to have a massive, massive impact when you think about, just the fact that, how much money is going to be going into these contracts, the fact that there's now a much higher rookie scale as far as that's concerned. So it's a situation that really, I think, kind of encapsulates really everything that's been, that we've been talking about for such a long time, is the fact that the players understood that there was a lot more money that was coming into the WNBA's coffers, and now the players are going to be seeing a lot more of it because we've been seeing, all the news that's been, coming out the last few years about, like I said, all this new money coming into the WNBA. And it's great that the players are going to be seeing a pretty good chunk of it, as evidenced by the fact that they raised the salary cap so much.
Somebody been hiding money under the mattress this whole time, and I'm been convinced. I've been convinced. No, but like let's stick to that for a second
Mhm.
and entertain my conspiracy. Well, y'all know how I think for real because we talk offline like all the time. But we know, okay, and this is a conversation that I really can't stand because I feel like you could tell like people who kind of start this is not also a conversation where I'm going to say like, oh, you know, you weren't there in the beginning, like you weren't shoot with us shooting in the gym. That's not where I'm going with this. But the WNBA has been consistently growing for probably a decade. I started covering the W in 2020. Before, okay, Beyond the W was
14.
2014. So probably I started 2013. And there has been a consistent growth. A little quiet, a little first, but it was a growth nonetheless. It's always been growing. And I think it started to pick up more with the star power that started to come into the league and the style of play and the winning and things like that. Now, obviously, over the last 2 to 3 years, it catapulted through the roof. And I have no problem with crediting that to the addition of Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark into the league and bringing that storyline that they're both their individual star power into the league, and the fan bases followed into the league as well as new eyes, catapulted the league into the next stratosphere. But they were able to go as far as they've gotten, as far as we've gotten to this point, because the foundation was already being risen, right? It was already being built. You're already on a good level prior to. All the stats have been saying that viewership is up, attendance is up, merchandise sales are up. Everything has been going up, 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 up. So my thing is pre Caitlin, pre Angel, pre 2025 and 24 and 23, money was being made. Now, maybe
True.
not as like quickly, but money was being made. So I always felt like money has been, I don't know who's hiding it, but the players know more than me. Cause I like, and that's another thing too. These players are not dumb. These are ladies that I would say 99%, 98% of the players that come into the WNBA leave with a 4-year degree. Or they're probably continuing their studies behind the scenes. We don't know that. Or they they leave the league, continue the education, get a master's or whatever, and then share that information down to the current player that's in the league. You know what I mean? Like these girls are not
Mm.
dumb. They
Right.
know business more than anything, not only because of their education, but because and they're not a lot of them are not stuck with one league. They play overseas. So they know how to do business because they have to do business in multiple places. They have to do business because in multiple places because they get income from and revenue from multiple places. They have to supplement that income from multiple ways. These girls are not dumb. There's been money under the mattress this whole time.
It's
So
been there.
it's still there. And I'm glad that they finally got what they and I'm fine and I'm glad that we could finally put to rest this incredibly aggravating narrative that is out there in the manosphere
Mm.
of Twitter, where they're like, "Oh well, the revenue is not there, so how you gonna want to be played like the men?" And we don't. They don't want to make what the first of all, if they want to make what the men in the NBA make, they should. Let's put that there. They should. But we understand also math. They're not generating nowhere near what the men's league is making. They want a comparable percentage to what the men make. The men, I think, get 50 or 51% in the NBA a revenue share.
Yeah.
50 or 51%. That's why the freaking 14th player on the bench that you never heard of, the whole, free agency starts for men
Hmm.
in July 1st. You get a contract. You get a contract. You get a contract. That's why, because they making money and they get such a huge pool that goes into the salary cap, and that's why the girls just want something that is comparable to what theirs is. I would have loved for them to have gotten 50%. But they also understand we're still growing. We got teams, we got expansion. So they're not trying to be selfish either, but they want what they deserve. And I think 20% is a start. I think it should be more. I would have loved to have seen more, but it's a lot more than what the league was trying to keep them at.
Exactly.
So 20% is a start. And I think, I don't know, quote me, I'm probably wrong, but I think obviously they can, I think there's a 7-year agreement with the ability to opt out at 6 again. So, um, yeah. What about you, Lamar? What sticks out to you?
For me, is a couple of things. We spoke briefly about, basically the Erica Hamby rule. Not a pregnant player can't get traded without her consent. I think that's huge. I've never heard of anything similar in other leagues. I think the NWSL mandated like all trades can't be done without player consent, which would be, you know, something great if that was adopted. But given the situation that she went through and the fight that she went through for the Players Association and the executive committee to again listen and hear that and say, hey, we're going to look out for our sister and anyone that may ever be in that situation again, to have some protections. I thought that was amazing. So, kudos to the Erica for standing on business in her situation and for the Players Association to take that and kind of get it codified. Looking at the payments to past players, like that's huge too. Even if it's a one time deal, I'm looking at the sheet myself. So $100,000 for retirees with 12 plus years of service, 50 grand for 8 to 11 years of service, 30 grand for 5 to 7 years of service. You don't know what some players are doing. Not everyone may have opportunities like a Candace Parker to be getting a contract and doing, side announcing work. Maybe someone's back home coaching youth and that influx of cash for to say thank you for your service essentially could be game changing just like the rest of the money across the board. So I thought that was something major that the players really fought for. And again, they truly stuck to their word about it being transformational for everyone. For players that laid the foundation, for the players that are the foundation current, and the players that are going to make the foundation coming in. And the fact that the salaries get adjusted immediately. I was reading ESPN's recent article where they kind of broke down examples of each tier of player and what people are going to make. Like Asia, if she signs a super max that she's eligible for, goes from 200 to 1.4 or something along those lines. Um, you have kind of elite veterans, that may go from a certain number to about 600,000. I think it was Alana Smith that they mentioned. So co-defensive player of the year last year with Asia. So you go from whatever her number was, I forget what they mentioned, to about 600 grand just because you have a lot of years of experience. You have some awards. Caitlin, Angel, Paige's numbers are going from under 100,000 to you know 3, 4, $500,000 immediately. I would love to see what the numbers adjust to for the few players like Alexi Brown that were actually still under contract, like the handful of people that were still under contract that weren't rookie scale. but were veterans. But I believe they would still go up to at least the minimum of 300,000. So that's still transformational. Like it's insane when you really think about it. Um, I was looking somewhere on, I think on Threads, and someone mentioned, hey, the NBA we know was unprofitable within the first, like when they were in route year 35, they were still unprofitable. Then Magic and Bird took over that era,
Mhm.
going into the Jordan era. That's when they started, turning the corner. We're right on time, being in
Exactly.
year 30, with where we are. And I think there's a chance for the rise to be even more exponential with how things are in the year of our Lord 2026, So I think smashing those narratives and getting such a transformational CBA locked in was, it was groundbreaking, and we're gonna reap the benefits of it. And I'll say one more thing that I was thinking about what you said, Love. I hate to be a little antagonistic, but when you really think about it, a lot of the things that were put in place to hinder these women across the board ended up working against them. Everyone argued, hey, why can't the players come out earlier? They always had the rule that it had to be 4 years out of high school or out of college rather, in order for you to get drafted. Well, that forces you to get a 4-year degree and kind of come out of
Mhm.
school a more rounded, educated individual. So you're putting in this negotiation a bunch of women with advanced degrees and a lot of experience going toe to toe with the lawyers of the league and the executives of the league. So they're kind of on even footing, you know.
Mhm.
So you have situations like that again it worked against them. I think that worked in the players' favor, that you have these bright, accomplished, educated women that know ball, and they just went head to head with the league, and they stood on business. So again, props to them.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. For me, the points that you guys made definitely are some of the things that stood out to me. I absolutely love um the one-time payment to former players. I think that is just a nice touch to say thank you to, in honoring and paying homage to the ladies that have built this foundation and this league into what we love today. And one of the biggest uh missed opportunities I feel with the W is the lack of consistent honoring of their legends. We have a few that, that we do love and honor as with the league and just in the culture in general, but I think there's room for so many because there's so many women that have contributed to your favorite teams that didn't have the big name or mainstream name that kind of went into coaching into a team, for a college team or even a high school team or started their own business or so, stayed overseas or something like that. And just to know that they're going to get their flowers um in the form of dollars. We love that, right? So I'm grateful for that. What else sticks out to me? I read that they're going to codify the charter air travel into the CBA going forward.
Yep.
And I think that is essential. Um, Charter travel for them at this point is essential. You see what's going on with TSA. Okay.
Oh,
You see what's going on out here. It's a zoo out here. And could you imagine
Oh no.
the ladies being in the midst of a season and now they have to be online for 7 hours to get through security to fly from New York to Atlanta?
oh,
Like,
no one.
or to fly from LA to Phoenix. Like, a
Mm.
flight that should or Vegas, that should be in less than an hour, will turn into a whole day ordeal because of some of these uncontrollables, right? So, having the charter thing is, and it's just about comfort and the whole concept of, remember it was before like the team advantage over one. Remember, like I think the Liberty and
Yeah.
the Aces were getting in trouble with the league because they put their teams on charters and they were like, oh well, it creates a disadvantage to other teams that don't. Well, get everybody a plane. Like, what is the problem? Like,
Not their fault that the Aces and the Liberty were actually looking after their players.
you know what I'm saying? That's crazy to me. Just like, so
Figure
that
it
they won't
out.
allow them to fly
And that's why so
comfortably.
many free agents wanted to sign with Vegas and New York.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And especially if your team, I'm just say it, no shade to the cities. If your team isn't in the sexiest city, you better make sure that you have top-notch everything. Housing, accommodations, flights, facilities, and everything. Because players want to play in places that they can have a life off the court as well. They're bringing their families, they're bringing their friends or families are coming to see them more often. They want to grow there, they want to connect with the community there. Like sometimes I feel like with athletes, which is why I've always hated the sudden trades that you see oftentimes, especially in like the men's side. It's like y- players just don't come to just play a game and go home and sit in the house till the next game. Like, you know what I mean? Like their families eat at the restaurants there. Their kids go to the schools there. Their spouses go to the shopping malls. They find, primary care physicians, and like there's so they come ingrained into those communities. So I feel like if you're not the sexiest city because you're a smaller market, like everything that you offer these players have to be top notch to keep them coming and for them players to want to come to play for you outside of just having like a great culture within the organization, right? So
Mm,
so
good
that's
point.
those two things stuck out to me for sure. Obviously the salary cap increase, the revenue share, the
Housing.
league provided housing as well. Speaking of housing, I think that was very important. I didn't know that was such a contentious part of the conversation, and I'm just like, yeah, like team league housing should be a standard, especially if you're not, number one or two on the call sheet on the team, right? Especially if
Yeah.
you live in an expensive market like a Los Angeles or New York or shit, even
A
Atlanta
Golden State.
or Golden State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Or even a Toronto.
or Toronto, which is way more expensive than I even thought it would be. Like, yeah, I'm happy that, you know, it's being covered and that gives players time to save also, because if they want to be in this particular city or team long term, they can save and then they can purchase their own and eventually give them the time to be able to transition out of team spot paid for housing. So now that we got our key things out the way, I want to go through just a little bit of the sections. So the first main section on this agreement here is all about the compensation and revenue sharing. So like we stated before, the revenue sharing model is going to be, and I'm reading directly from the form, is the profession the first comprehensive sharing model in women's professional sports history. It creates a revenue-based salary cap directly tied to league and team revenue growth. The team salary cap has increased to is going to be increased to 7 million in 2026. Mind you, there was talks of 5 million throughout this entire like coverage. And then
Mm,
they set it at 7 million, and it's projected to be over the salary cap is projected to be over 11 million in 2032. So in 6 years, it's going to be over a million, $11 million dollars. Then so the new salary increases. So max salary now is going to be 1.4 million in this year and projected to be 2.4 in 2032. So by the end of this CBA, it's going to double, basically.
mm,
Or close to double. Average salary is going to be around 583 and it's projected to be over a million in 2032. So in 6 years, the average WNBA salary is going to be over $1 million.
Mm.
And minimum salary is going to be 270 to 300, based off years of service, increasing to 340 to 380 by 2032. And rookie scale salaries will also increase significantly, and all existing rookie deals will be adjusted to align with the new salary scale. So everyone is going to be getting their pay rate adjustment, and the new rookies coming in are going to be getting paid more than what previous years have been. My question to you guys, if you guys have had any thought, I don't really have necessarily an opinion. I'm just curious about yours. Is now that we have this increase, how do you think players coming out of college will now receive it? Because one thing that I always worried about, especially with the introduction of NIL a few years ago, is how's the league going to keep up with NIL, right? Because you got these players that are in college, and some of them have like, you know, 6, 7, even 7-figure deals, or they have multiple 6-figure deals that might add up to 7 figures, right? You have some players in college that are already expressing or involved in ownership of teams across other sports, right? Obviously, you have endorsements and everything like that. So there are a good amount of players that would obviously we can't wait for them to play for the W, or we would love for them to play for the W. But I was like, how's the WNBA going to compete with the girls making more money in college? Because they can graduate from college and just continue to find deals outside of that. How will they do it? So now seeing how they've rose to the occasion with the salaries here, how do you think that will coincide with ladies coming out of college that have NIL deals?
I think it'll work out just fine to be honest, and I think like we mentioned earlier, the 4-year rule for W players, as long as that doesn't change, obviously there was no mention of that in any of the CBA talks. I think it will just kind of allow for a patient approach for players. So think about someone like Olivia Miles, TCU, Notre Dame TCU, that
Mhm.
kind of waited. I don't think she said specifically. Okay, I think she said something about uncertainty with with the league, and she was like, "Hey, I'll go from Notre Dame to TCU. I'll get this NIL bag. I'll work on my game." And she's going from making under 100,000 if she would have came out as a number 3 pick last year to walking into 400 something thousand, and she was able to definitely enhance her stock. She had a great year this year, and they're still playing. I think what will happen with NIL being so prominent now, you'll take a player that, hey, I know I have 4 years, I can't come out early, maybe I'll take a fifth year if I'm afforded it, and I can just stack up. There's no rush. Maybe it pushes some people. So maybe we fall in love with someone. Say it's Sarah Strong, sophomore, UConn. She has 2 more years. God forbid she doesn't get hurt. But let's say the rules change and maybe she can just take a straight 5 years. Maybe you want to stay in stores. You don't want to have to worry about the adult stuff of coming into the league and um, having to figure everything out. You are living comfortably in college with a handful of money and being able to do whatever you want to do. So you'll
Mhm.
come to the league more mature. You have financial backing from NIL, and now you'll go into a league that is raising the professional standard. And they'll kind of match up. So with the professional standard stuff in the CBA, a lot of these players that are going from a UConn or a USC, Notre Dame, or Texas, all these elite programs with the amenities, with the charter travel, with all the things that come with being like a top 25 Power 4 program. Now you're going into a W that can match a lot of those things, and there's no drop off. So
Mhm.
with the rule still being where it is, people will just patiently build their game and build their brand. That's what we love about the women's college to WNBA pipeline, because they stay around, they build their narratives, they build their lore, and they come to the league as fully fledged brands and people. So I think they'll more comfortably continue to do that unless there's some change down the road where maybe they can come out after 2 or 3 years to get to the bag early. But I don't think they'll change it for real.
Okay. How about you, Akeem?
And Lamar, you just made the point that I was also going to make. And I think that on the women's side, when you look at college basketball, I think that that has been something that we've been seeing over the last several years as to why their growth of the women's college game has translated into the growth of the WNBA. I think that really when you think about it, the fact that the WNBA has the 4-year rule, I think that that is actually something that in many ways helps it as well as help the college game. Because the thing is, when you're seeing when you're seeing these kids and they have their first year in college and then they develop and then they're going to their senior year, or maybe they have a fifth year, or maybe they have a red shirt or a transfer year, whatever. It's a
Mhm.
situation that because of NIL, we know who these names are. Like, we know who Sarah Strong is. We know who Olivia Miles is. We know who Joyce Edwards is. We know who Flau'jae Johnson is. We know who Hannah Hidalgo is. I mean, we know who all of these big names are. So it's a situation that, because of the fact that we know who all these big names are, they're taking that time while they're in college. And like you said, they're building that brand. They are stacking that NIL bread. And when they get to the W, it's a situation where it's not like these companies are all of a sudden stopping doing business with these kids when all of a sudden they get into the W. They're still doing business with them when they get into the WNBA. So it's a situation that they got that. Look at what Juju Watkins just did. And she's not even playing because she's injured. I mean, she's about to have a signature shoe put out there. So
Mhm.
it's really, like you said, one of those situations where, because of the fact that there's more of a spotlight on these college players, that all of a sudden it's like when they get into the W, it's one of those situations where they're pretty much going to have everything on their feet, especially now that you look at what
Mhm.
is, this new CBA. So I feel like in many ways it's going to even enhance it even more, because of the fact that, because you look at the men's side of March Madness, like, I could not name like five of those players on the men's side of March Madness. But at the very least, on the women's side, we know who they are. So I feel like that's something that actually helps both the college game and the WNBA, because it's a situation where, folks are looking at who's going to be on these draft boards and they're thinking, okay, I know who Lauren Betts is. I know who Olivia Miles is. I know who Flau'jae Johnson is. I know who Raven Johnson is. So it helps, it's one of those rising tides that lifts all ships sort of thing.
Definitely. Definitely. Um, I'm excited, and I'm happy that the players that are gonna be coming down the pike in a few years have this to come into. And one thing that came to mind as both of you guys were talking was just about, and I think anybody can relate to this, you don't have to be an athlete. When you are well taken care of, you kind of feel more motivated and inspired to show up and to be there, right? And all I could think about are players before these current players, the players of yesteryear, the mothers, the pillars of the W, who were playing for far less money than this, who had to play overseas. And those players, with what they had and what they were given at the time, created this 30-year-old league that has stood the test of time over any other women's league in the world, that has come and gone. Um, they still showed up. They still put their all into it. They still play with such passion and love. With in hindsight, the little that they had and were given. So imagine what we're about to see with players that are coming in with that same passion, that same drive, that same love of the game, that same commitment, that same talent, but now are going to be taken care of. I feel like we're going to see the product go into a place we haven't seen before. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
when you're taken care of, you wanna run through a wall for the person that's taking care of you so well, right? Like,
it's true.
and they were doing that with very little or way less than what they deserve. So imagine with what they are getting what they deserve or what's, like, the best case scenario at this time. Imagine what we're about to see. Um, the possibilities, I can't wait.
Real quick, Lo.
Uh-huh.
I think the first kind of test case of someone having to make that decision is gonna be Juju. Because think about it.
Mm,
Her
yeah,
she's 20 years old right now, July birthday. So she'll turn 21 this year. Goes into the 26-27 season. She'll be 22. Um, she'll be draft eligible at 22, and it'll be her fourth year. So she'll be a redshirt junior. So for her, is it, hey, the league has this quality standard now, probably similar to what she may have at SC. Do you come out early? Like obviously, we pray she gets fully healthy and has a great year next
right.
year with Jazzy and Coach Gottlieb and the whole squad. But it's like, do you go and live off of 3 years of actually being able to play and say, hey, I can get to the league, 500 something K as the presumed number one pick. You know, you'll be able to charter no matter where you go, depending on what team gets number one pick that year. It might be a great situation, or do you say, hey, I want to take my time, like we said before. Like I know the league is gonna be there and
Mhm.
it's on great footing. So I can just chill and kind of get my NIL deals and things that are going on, stay in LA, come out in 28, the year that the Olympics are going to be in LA. We know how big, the LA roots are for her. So I think that'll be the biggest case study, or at least the first case study of what does someone do when they have comparable options versus if the old CBA was still kind of the norm around this time. It's like, yeah, I'll wait. Like I feel like it would be automatic that she would wait if you're going into a number one pick situation when you're making maybe $80,000 when she's probably making far more than that in whatever deal she has now.
Oh, she
So
is.
it'll, it'll
Yeah.
be it'll be interesting to see this time next year what she decides to do.
And to your point, the beauty of that is that she has options now,
Exactly.
right? Like, I love having options, even if I'm indecisive as hell. Y'all know that. But just because options to me means power. That's what options mean to me. That's why I hate when have only one thing to work with. I don't like that. I feel like I don't have power. That this empowers players to now have the option of saying, "Hey, like I can," because a player like Juju, first of all, what I feel Juju is going to do for the W is what Jordan did for the NBA. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm banking. I bet my salary going forward on that. Some people compared Angel and Caitlyn to Bird and Magic. And if we're going against that or with that timeline, then Juju is Jordan, which means she's about to take this league to another stratosphere, which means by the time this next CBA comes around, with 4 years after her, the money,
Bank.
her max contract,
Dollar bills, y'all.
Hmm.
yeah, right? But
Hmm.
current, I'm happy that players like her, players like uh Ali Crooks in a few years, right? Players like Olivia Miles, like they're gonna now have options where
Michaela Blake's.
they can stay till they're done and or they can say, okay, you know what, maybe I can jump out a little early or whatever like that. I'm happy that this increase now gives players more to work with, right? And that's what we wanted to. We wanted players to have more options, especially here at home, stateside, like to play for a league based in their own country that, and this is nothing against players that come from overseas to play for the WNBA, but I'm just focusing on players that are from here, specifically like they get to play here, or even players that came from overseas and to play for a university here,
Mhm.
and now they want to play for the league here. Like they can continue to build their life here in the most successful women's sports league in history. So I'm very happy that this gives players now more leverage and more power to make decisions about their future that will affect their future rather than be only working with one or two options that may not be what would be beneficial for them anyway, but they gotta figure it out and make it work. This gives them options that would work either way. So, um, I just want to go over the next section real quick. We've kind of touched on everything else, so I just want to just go over the next few sections very quickly. So we talked about the next section on this list is player benefits and league standards. So we talked about the league housing. So it's going to be the league is going to provide housing for players 26, 27 in 2028, and for players making 500K or less in 29 and 30. So basically rookies will have their league housing covered, and developmental players will also be providing housing each year. I touched on the chartering of flights, expanded first class travel accommodations for players across league events, which duh. Um, New facility requirements requiring teams to provide enhanced training and treatment resources. So if you do not have your facilities up to par, get to it. Call the contractors tomorrow. Okay.
Looking at you, Chicago. Looking at you, Dallas.
See, I wasn't gonna
Good
name no names.
pick.
All I'm saying is start calling your contractors, start putting some feelers out there for people to come and make those necessary upgrades and adjustments. Expanded. This one I thought was actually really interesting because I didn't really know this was something of concern. Expanded team staffing requirements, including access to additional physicians, athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, physical and massage therapists, and nutritionists, which I thought that was very interesting. Only because we don't know all the makings of what the staff looks like in comparison to maybe other sports. So this shows that there was a need there and now it's going to be met. Significant increases in team contributions for their 401k, enhanced life insurance benefits, obviously the one-time recognition payment for WNBA veterans, starting at 30,000 for retirees with 5 or 7 years of service, going up to 100,000 for retirees for 12 plus years. Expanded family planning benefits for spouses and partners, and expanded mental health coverage. All right, so the next section is performance and award bonuses. So, in addition to their salaries, the players got even more opportunities to make some extra money. And we all about a good bonus, a good extra bit of money. So I'm gonna try to go over this real quick. These are regarding league and postseason awards. So WNBA champions will get 60,000 per player. The championship runner-ups will get 20,000 per player. Teams eliminated in the second round will get 10,000 per player. Teams eliminated in the first round will get 5,000 per player. Let's see. And the increase is crazy because WNBA champions used to get $22,908 per player. Now they're getting 60 grand per player.
Mm.
That's more than double. That's a
That's
one, that's like a
roughly
one and
triple.
a half thing increase. That's so significant. Um, all WNBA first team will get 30,000 per player. Again, that was up from 10,300. So that's triple? That's triple?
Something like that,
Close to
Something like
triple.
roughly.
that?
Close to triple, yeah.
All WNBA second team will get 15,000 per player. All defensive first team will get 15,000. All defensive second team will get 7. All rookie team will get 5. MVP will get $60,000, up from $15,450.
Wow.
That is about triple or more than triple. That's significant. Defensive player of the year is 30,000, up from 5,000.
It's 6 times as much.
Yeah. Yeah. Rookie of the year gets 15,000. Six player of the year gets 15,000, and most improved 15,000. Sportsmanship award 10,000. WNBA Finals MVP gets 30,000. Commissioner's Cup MVP is 10. And uh All-Star Game participants get uh awards ranging from 7,500 all the way up to 20,000, and those are also significant as well. And beginning in 2027, these bonus amounts will increase at the rate of growth of the salary cap. So they're not done here. This is just for this year. Okay.
Yeah.
In the last section, I'm just gonna go run through it real quick on what we have here. This is regarding roster construction and free agency. So this is obviously relevant for what's about to take place in the next couple weeks. So teams are required to carry 12 players on a roster, creating 2 new additional developmental roster spots per team will be added that do not count towards the salary cap. And that's actually good because one of the biggest asks have, like, from fans and even some players, have been additional roster spots, right? This league is growing, teams are growing, but just for just general like health of the players, um, some additional roster spots. So this creates new roster spots, and also I'm interested what the additional development roster spot looks like. Like, what does that mean, and what it entails? Like, what is a developmental type thing? Because when I think of developmental within the W, I think of like a G League equivalent or something like that. So I wonder like what this spot will be um on these teams. And we can go into that further in a second with what you guys think it'll be, but I just want to wrap up these last couple of bullet points. Starting in 2027, players with 7 or more years of service cannot be designated as core players. Accelerated pathways to maximum contracts for star players on rookie deals. So that's important. A new season-ending injury exception will allow teams additional salary cap flexibility to replace injured players. Pregnancy and childbirth salary cap exemption, and probably one of the most trailblazing points of the CBA, teams must obtain player consent before trading a pregnant player. And that is what we have on this briefing that was sent out to all of us. So I want to circle back to the developmental roster spot. What do you guys think that's going to look like?
Real quick, in the latest ESPN article that they put up today, well, yesterday, Alexa and Kendra put it out. One of the notes said for the 2 new developmental player spots, players must have 3 or fewer years of service, or 4 to 5 with minutes limit. That makes you eligible. They can be activated for 12 games in 2026. So it is essentially like a G League situation where, I guess they'll be able to practice, play, work out. Obviously, they're younger players that don't have as much experience and they can get some burn. So 44 game season, I believe this year, 12 games, roughly a quarter of the season that you can play in. So and it doesn't count against the cap. I think that's a good setup for those players to get some tape. And if they don't necessarily stick or get bumped up to a full contract, at least other teams and other organizations can get some eyes on them, and you never know what may happen in the next year. So I think it's a good compromise of what we all wanted, is to keep more players around and not have to do the dance with the hardship exception.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah, That's basically what it is for sure. Because how often, and we're about to go into training camps. I mean, how often? In fact, I put something on the site, I believe, going into last year's training camp, where even with the additional expansion team with the Golden State Valkyries, there were still enough players on these training camp rosters for one, two, three, four, five, six additional WNBA teams just off of training camp rosters,
Mhm.
because we know every single team had to cut down their rosters to 12. When you make those cuts, there would have been six additional teams just off of the players that would have been cut. So that's great that they were able to put that in the CBA with the developmental players and give them an opportunity for sure.
Yeah, I'm happy that that's a good start. I think we'll see how things play out and shake out with once the newer teams are filled, as well as and see how it plays out. But what I'm just excited to see more than anything. I'm excited to just see players that we haven't seen in the league in a few come back. Cause not like you know what I mean? Like I just hope we make room for some of the players that probably you haven't seen them on a roster in a year or two now have an opportunity to come back outside of like the players that are already in the league, coupled with coming from the draft. I want to see some players that when I say in the league, I mean like currently active, like as of last season. I
Mm,
want to see some other
yeah.
players that maybe we haven't heard from them in a few, but they're still active. They haven't officially retired. I want to see some of them get some opportunities as well. What I was looking off at the side at, so you guys watching this pod or listening, my little computer setup is a little weird. So I have like my big screen on the side and I'm obviously recording on my MacBook. So I was looking, and I'm using two different browsers. So I was looking up, excuse me, details of which I think ties into directly with the CBA talk, is that it was announced today, um, the new media rights deal between CBS and the WNBA.
Oh
So,
yeah.
Did see that?
it looks like for this is a long-term media rights deal where the CBS Sports will be airing up to 20 regular season games across CBS and Paramount Plus. They don't have details of what that deal is at this point, financial details, but that's the main crux of it, which I think obviously is amazing. With the NBA media negotiations that took place last year or the year before, obviously, a chunk of that money was allocated for the WNBA, and I forgot how much billions it was, but it was a few billion. So I think with those media rights deals, plus the growth that we're going to see from attendance, from tickets, from viewership, from all the different things, I feel like
Franchise valuations.
franchise valuations, ticket sales, especially coming from these new franchises that are coming down between now and the next CBA. I feel like financially we're going to see the women's league in a completely different place in 6 years alone. I feel like we've look how much has grown in the last 3, right? Especially from a financial standpoint. Again, like I said, I feel like the money has always been in the mattress. Someone's been stashing that money in the freezer. Not someone specifically, I just mean like the money has always been there, but,
And the players knew it too.
of
Mhm.
course they do. Of course they do. But I'm happy to see it now. It's undeniable now. And I feel at this point, if you're still talking that hot mess about, "Oh, the league isn't playing or isn't making money," then you're a hater or you don't watch the W.
Pretty
Simple
much.
as that.
Pretty much.
Um, Speaking as well about that last bullet, another press release that was released today is regarding the expansion draft that is set for next Friday, April 3rd. So we are recording today, it's March 25th, it's Wednesday, and it's set for April 3rd, next Friday. So this will be the expansion draft for the Portland Fire and the Toronto Tempo. Both are making their brand new debuts, inaugural seasons this year in May. And I'm so excited. So a coin toss is going to take place this Friday, the 27th, with the winner having the right to choose between either receiving the first selection of the expansion draft or the 6th pick rather than the 7th in the first round of the annual draft that's on April 13th. So whichever they're going to have the choice between whether getting the first pick of this expansion draft or if they want to wait till the big draft come April 13th. It says that it will consist of 2 rounds, with Portland and Toronto having the ability to select from a designated pool of available players as determined by each of the current 13 teams. In the college draft, so the one on the 13th, Portland and Toronto will alternate picks such that whichever team holds the 6th pick in the first round will then have the 2nd pick in the second round and the 6th pick in the third round. The other team will have 7, then 6, then 7. And in preparation, all the current 13 teams have to submit a roster list by Sunday. That includes every player that they have rights to that are active, suspended, listed as reserved, cord, all the different things. So, how do you think this is going to play out?
Chaotically.
Two,
Vintage W.
two. We just went through one with the Valkyries, and now we got 2, and we got 3 more coming in a few years with
Cleveland,
and
Detroit,
and Philly. Which you guys know how I feel about that, but no.
But you know what? I think the thing with that is at the very least, like, with Cleveland, with Detroit, and with Philly, at the very least, it's one throughout the next the next 3 years. With
Yeah,
this, you got
too.
2 expansion drafts being held simultaneously for Portland and Toronto. And I think that that's especially considering like April is going to, and I'm glad you brought this up, Lo. Like April is going to be a month. When you think about everything that's going to happen, and these expansion drafts are definitely going to be part of it. I mean, so I'm interested to see exactly who Portland and Toronto select. It'll definitely give us also it'll give us a bit of an inkling as far as like who the other 13 teams protected, because I know going into the Golden State draft, that was one thing that we was waiting on, like where are we going to get the protected players list, and we never got the protected players list.
Right.
So yeah, so I'm definitely interested to see, and I'm glad, like you said, we got the CBA, so now folks in Oregon, as well as throughout Canada can be, it can be excited as far as like what their WNBA teams are going to resemble.
Exactly.
And speaking of the protected players list, like I know we probably won't get a specific list if the W holds on to how they did it last year, but I need an explanation of how people are going to protect players when everyone's a free agent.
And you know what?
Good point.
That is what I'm looking for right now. I was just trying, so you guys saw me looking on the side. I was trying to pull it up, but right now my computer is acting a whole donkey. If you could just give me 1 second so I can try to look up this list of who, because baby, what a time such as this. A
Oh,
time such as this that we have.
oh,
Okay.
It's over 100 players, I think, that I
oh.
saw
So
that are free agents.
I am going to. So I'm looking. Okay, I found an article on CBSSports.com that was published on March 19th, so last week. And this is the top 30 players. So obviously, for the interest of time, we're not going to go everybody, but the top 30 players that are free agents this year. Mind you, free agency typically, guys, for the WNBA starts February 1st, but we didn't have a CBA. So between now and May, we have 2 expansion drafts, the actual WNBA draft, and free agency.
And training camps.
And training camp. and we still got to adjust salaries.
Mm-hmm.
So the accounting department and HR is going to be a doozy. Okay, they got
They're
to
going to
work
be drinking a lot of coffee over the next month and a
the
half.
next month and a half.
Look,
Okay, someone's working extra hours. I
if
hope they
Dunkin',
get a time and a half.
if
Okay,
Dunkin' or Starbucks want to get a sponsorship in, do it now.
I'm about to scream.
okay, now's the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, fresh off top, Asia Wilson, who also I've already seen articles saying that her she's going to be the highest paid women's athlete or WNBA player in history because she's going to be getting that 1.4. We know that, right?
Easily.
Asia Wilson, she's unrestricted and has not signed a new contract yet with Aces. Also unrestricted, Nafisa Collier, Brianna Stewart, Alyssa Thomas, Jackie Young, Sabrina Ionescu. Never in my life have I seen every single star of a league be up for free agency all at once. It's crazy. Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquil Jones, Alicia Gray, Neko Ogwumike, Kelsey Mitchell, Kelsey Plum, Satu Sabali, Ryan Howard, Clea Copper, Skylar Diggins, Gabby Williams, Caleb McBride, Courtney Williams, Ezzy Magbajor.
Magbagor?
Yes, Magbagor. I'm sorry. If you're listening to this, I butchered your name. My apologies. Chelsea Gray, Brianna Jones, Veronica Burton, Elena Smith, Arika Gumbawale, Dearica Hamby, Shakira Austin, Azrae Stevens, Emma Meeseman, Ariel Atkins, Natasha Cloud.
That's a whole ring in Knoxville
Unrestricted,
or Springfield just off of those names.
free agent.
Exactly.
And that's the unrestricted. I don't know if that's all the unrestricted players or just like the top most recognizable names. I don't know what. Um
Again, think about it real
according
quick though. Think
hold
about
on.
it real
So
quick.
let me just read this real quick. Hold on.
Go,
It
go.
says the biggest item. Okay, no official dates have been announced, but ESPN reported that teams were given a tentative timeline for the process back in February. I expected the timeline will be extremely condensed. So between April 7th and 8th, teams can make qualifying offers and core player designations. April 9th through 11th, teams can make negotiating. Can begin negotiating with free agents, but no deals can be signed. So basically, free agency will be the week of April 12th through 18th, where players can officially sign contracts and offer sheets. Same week as the WNBA draft.
Wow.
Amazing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Thoughts,
Real,
concerns.
real quick. So just thinking about how everyone positioned themselves, because it was a known secret. A lot of people in the past few years aligned their contracts to expire this year, knowing that the CBA was gonna get renegotiated and there was gonna be a big jump. It feels like what LeBron and Wade and Bosh did with their contracts when they teamed up
Yeah.
times tens of hundreds of people.
Because everybody on that list finna get 1.4 mil. Like, I
A lot of them are
True.
listen. A lot of them are eligible for it.
everyone on that list, at least half that list is easily gonna get that. Like Asia, duh. Fee, duh. Brianna, duh. Like
AT?
AT, duh.
You know, it's going to be an interesting dynamic. I think it was the New York Post. I was reading the article, talking about how they were going to keep their core three of Stewie, Sabrina, and John Quill Jones. You could give all three of them, the 1.4 or something over a million. That at minimum would be what 4 to 4.5, and then you fill out the rest of your 7 million with that. But the minimums are at least 300,000, so you have some more room, but the math is going to have to be taken into consideration. Does someone like Asia probably deserves to take her 1.45, but maybe Stewie says, "Hey, I'll take 1 million versus the 1.4, so you can get a minimum salary player at that 300 to 400,000. For every 3 or 4 that you don't take, you can get an extra body in. So it's going to be interesting how the calculus goes between the GMs and the players. And think about a lot of the movement we had last year. Someone like Alyssa goes over to Phoenix. They'll figure out the money, but is she willing to go somewhere else again if Phoenix doesn't want to give her the max? A lot of people might just say, hey, the numbers are better, let's stay where we are on a short deal to at least have certainty going into this season, and then let 2027 play out to really have a full free agency period and kind of do some willing and dealing, or it could just go crazy. Like we don't know. We don't know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be interesting to see in such a tight timeline.
If it's anything we know about the W, it's more than likely going to go crazy. I mean, chaos at this point, especially when you think about when you think about free agency, at this point, it is baked into the WNBA's DNA. So at this point, I fully expected like some of this stuff we know is obvious. Obviously, Asia's going to get the supermax, but Fee, Stewie, At. I mean, they're definitely supermax eligible players. But it's one of those situations that when you look at that, when you look at that list, it's going to be very interesting to see, like you said, how all of this, how all of this plays out, especially in the midst of everything else that's going to be going on. Like I said, it's going to be a very busy month.
I also see players moving to teams where they can get a supermax because said team may not have a supermax player.
Mm, interesting.
So you take, and this is all my imagination, everyone. I am not an insider. I've been far away from the game too long. I ain't got no secrets or no one put telling secrets in my ear, okay? This is my imagination. But you brought up the example about New York where they obviously plan to core their Stewie, Sabrina, and Jonquel. All which are players that would be supermax players at this point. Um, but that's 1.4 times 3, so
That's 4.2
4.5.
right there.
right. So that's a good chunk of your salary cap. Um, I could see one of those players moving to a team that may not necessarily have a max player on their roster just yet, and they can become that person on their roster. Um, I don't know where, like, I'm just saying as an example, like if it's a place like that, where like a New York or like a or Vegas too. Like Vegas, I think have the same thing. Like yeah, Asia's gonna get a supermax. I think Chelsea Gray is a supermax player too, right? So like,
Good point.
how are they going to move? Like
Mhm.
there out this list, there are several players to me that are 1 point like because you also have to consideration longevity. You got to take consideration who are they to their team as well. Like Asia, obviously, yes. Nafisa is a supermax, like no brainer. So is Brianna
Right.
Stewart. So is NECA. So is Skylar. Like, you know what I mean? Like these are players that I think also too have been in it for so long. You take a player like a Skylar or like a NECA who are, there's a little bit more years behind them than in front of them. Like, I'm not saying they're going to retire anytime soon, but obviously they've been in the league for over a decade, so they have more thing behind them. This would probably be one of their best, or I don't say last, one of their best opportunities to get a deal that's super max. So they're gonna go for it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like a Sabrina, she got she got years left in the tank, all things considered, staying healthy and everything. So if she were not to get a supermax now, she could go to a team where she can get one, which I could see happening, or she could wait after another year or two, whatever. Maybe she takes a lower salary to stay within the Liberty, and then it could be a 2, 3 year, 4 year deal, and then after that, with the opt out early, and then she opts out early, can get the supermax either with the Liberty or with someone else. Like, it depends on the team. It depends on what they got going on. It depends on who they're trying to become, and I think also too, with a salary cap so big, you can really build the team you really want. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have a lot of room to really build a team that you really want to have. Not saying that the teams now aren't what the specifically teams want or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I mean, like, you have a lot of wiggle room, and with so many franchise players that are up for, like, these are franchise players. These are, if you listen to, I don't know if you guys listen to Melo's podcast, and they talk about being the white hat, which is like, you're the guy on the team. Like, like Melo was the white hat with the, what you call it, when he was on the Knicks. Obviously LeBron has been a white hat since he's been on damn near every team he's been on. So, like, these are all white hat players here. These are all players that you can build a franchise around. To me, majority of these players on this list are your one or your two.
Very much so. And I think
Maybe your
that's
three. But these
mm,
are if they're not the player, they're a big three. These are all big three type players here. So for me, they all warrant that level of pay. And we'll just see how it pans out. I want someone to let me hold $1. Let me hold $1, honey.
they would love
Y'all get
Sabrina in Golden
paid.
State because she's from the Bay Area.
Get
or
played, young lady. Get paid. I love it.
And she don't need to ring chase because she already got a ring.
Listen, listen. It's just the possibilities are just endless, and I'm just so thrilled for, like, where women's basketball is and where it's going, and I think that this CBA is setting up the groundwork for this league to be here for the long haul. I think I felt like, with the newfound success and eyes that came on the league so quickly over the last couple of years, I was like, "Ooh, is it like when I say the league, I don't mean just the WNBA, but just like just the culture even. Like, I feel like women's basketball culture, even we that have been around it for a little while, and people who've been around it well before us, it's like, and people came in even after us, like, it was just such a shift was happening. Something just very different. And it's like, it was a little scary for a little bit, right? Because it's like, whoa, like, new eyes, new audiences, new conversations, new outlets covering the game, new this, new, like, it's a lot of noise. So now I feel like the dust is starting to settle, and we're starting to see what's coming out of it. And shout outs to the players for just sticking to their guns again and staying just very vigilant and very focused throughout all the noise, throughout all the chatter, throughout the disappointments, throughout the no's, like not taking a no for an answer
Right.
is very
right.
admirable of them. And I'm so excited. Um, I feel like I talked enough about what I feel about the CBA. Do you guys have anything else that you want to add about the CBA?
I mean, I feel like you said, I mean, kudos to the players for sticking together and not, settling for anything less. And it's very interesting because like I said, it could have easily been one of those situations where, the players were like, you know what, let's just have a season. But I think this is really, um what this really shows is how much the players understand their worth and
Mhm.
how much, like you said, like both of you said, the players weren't just thinking about the current crop of players. They were thinking about the past players. They were thinking about the future players that are going to be coming into the WNBA through the high school ranks, the AAU college, that future crop of talent that's going to come, after the Asias, after the Fees, after the Stewies, after the Angels and the Caitlins. So it's a situation after the Pages. So it's one of those situations where, this was just in many ways just so all encompassing. And when you think about everything that they got out of this deal, like you said, it's going to make for an even better WNBA. I mean, they're even, I think they even mentioned something where the season, future seasons are supposed to be like 52 games long. That's another thing.
I saw
So, yeah.
that, and I was like, one thing the league said, "Okay, we'll give you this money, but baby, you're gonna have to work for this money. You're gonna have to make
I
your
see
season
what you mean.
longer."
Exactly.
But you know what I do like about that,
Niggas
though?
gonna suck themselves.
You know I do like that? I low key do like that, I ain't gonna hold you, because that means now we get women's basketball all year round. There's no
It
break
would,
now. Cause now if
yeah.
it were to go into November, we're going right into NCAA season. And now we're
Mhm.
gonna have NCAA season from November to April, and then we're gonna have what? No play, but we're gonna have basketball conversation because of the drafts and free agency and everything like that. Like now we finally with I like listen, I don't know how the players feel about it. I'm sure they probably have their different conversations and reservations about it. But for me, I've always wanted a WNBA season to be longer because I feel like now women's basketball finally isn't just a summer sport. Like now it
True.
is a because I mean, it wasn't a summer sport. It's always been year round with players going overseas, but obviously we don't really have access to that overseas play or watching the games on a mainstream accessible scale like that. Like you go watch the games, but you're not going to cut on ESPN to see it or CBS or whatever like that. So now we get to see
Mhm.
women's basketball all year round. We get to see them overlapping with like I've always hated that feeling of like, oh well, they're competing with with men's basketball, or, with the NFL. Okay, and like the NBA competes with the NFL for months, and no one bats a damn eyelash. Maybe around
Right.
like the holiday games because one sport is more for one holiday and the others for another. But like outside of that, we don't call into question any other time any other sport overlaps. The NBA overlaps with Major League Baseball, opening season all the time. We don't talk about that. So, yes, I would love for the WNBA season to stretch longer so they can build an audience, so they can have more games for people to watch. And then just the seam right into the WNBA, the college season. That'll also help to improve that transition of the college game into the pro game that we have been seeing get better and better over the years. So I am for the league. I mean, I'm for the team. The season getting longer. I'm for it. And
And you know how all these other sports, how they have holidays. The WNBA needs to really, in my opinion, they definitely need to lock into Juneteenth and make that their holiday.
I like that.
I like that. I like
They need to lock into Juneteenth. The same way that MLB has 4th of July, the same way that that the NBA has Christmas, the same way that the
I would
NFL
like
has
that.
Thanksgiving. Juneteenth needs to be the W's holiday.
Juneteenth would be Juneteenth would be fire. We'll see.
Absolutely.
We'll see now because we'll see what these owners are talking about.
Hmm.
Because these owners
Hey,
still gonna be owners. But we'll see.
knowing your audience.
Know your audience now. Exactly. Lean in. And they could do something that ties more into just the culture and the standard of what the WNBA stands for. Leading
Right.
into a Juneteenth. I think it's fantastic. I think it's brilliant. But we'll see how.
Especially since you got a team already in Dallas.
Hmm?
Mm.
Especially since you already got a team in Dallas.
Yeah, and they can spearhead it. They can. I'm with it. I'm with it. I'm just. We'll see how
I
these
just
some of
want
these
fair
owners,
play.
but I think it's a great idea, and I would love for them to do something like that. I'm trying to think. Uh, you got anything, Lamar?
Yeah, I mean, I'll close it out and be short. Think about how contentious the negotiations were on both sides throughout the whole thing. Again, we're proud of the players for standing their ground and sticking to their guns throughout the whole thing. But it was getting tight and tough. And then you see someone like Natasha Cloud once I think people knew that it was about to get signed, like, hey, friend, you
Mhm.
know, and I think there's lessons to be learned on both sides. I think for the Players Association and the players, at large, it's just another reminder of what happens when you're unified. Think about it. They've changed Senate races when they've been unified. Now
Mhm.
they've changed the landscape of women's sports by staying together. So I think whenever the next moment that they need to meet comes and they need to be a united front, they can just go back to this and say, hey, trust the process. Let's trust each other. So I think that's a great thing for them. And I think for the league, my wish for the league, for Commissioner Engelbert and everyone there is just like lean in and trust the players. I
Mhm.
know they're probably looking at this and saying, "Hey, we're committing a lot of money to the players. Obviously, well deserved money, but everyone's books are about to skyrocket." But when you really think about it, lean into it because now, if all your star players are comfortable and they have a solid bit of money that they don't have to worry about going overseas, you'll make that up in the off season because your best players can stick around and maybe do more marketing for the league in the off
Mhm.
season, or be at NBA games to show their face, and then brands will see them and maybe want to connect with them more because they're more visible. Like, you're going to get that investment back as long as the players are taken care of and they stay here. So, I think as long as they can maybe rebuild whatever relationships may have been strained in the negotiations and understand, hey, you've poured into these women, you know, and they've always looked out for people that look out for them. Usually it's been the fans and the media that have supported them. They've always been open and accessible for us. That's why we love covering them so much. And I think that, and if they have labor peace over these next 6 to 7 years, and people's pockets are solid, and they can do family planning, and they have the mental health things going, and everything just works well, they'll, just like anything with women, you give it to them, it's gonna multiply. So
Mhm.
you got them right. You took care of the majority of things that they seem to wanted to have, most of the things that they cared about. They're gonna give it back and making sure that the league excels into year 35, year 40, moving forward, and that money is gonna come back. I have no doubt.
Yeah, it is, and even with the money that this league is about to start to generate even more of, and obviously the money's gonna go into the pockets of the players. And I know this conversation is about the CBA, but I just want to add too that I really hope that with the revenue that comes in, that the league and teams also continue to expand their teams and expand the opportunities that they offer, because there's so much talented people that love women's sports, that want to work in women's sports, that have worked in women's sports, or that still are, um, that would be great additions to these companies with ideas that can speak the players' languages, and not just people that never, but it could be players that are former players or that played in college, right? And we can create that pipeline for opportunities for them on a professional standpoint on the other side of basketball, on the front office side, on the media side, or marketing or different things like that. I just can't wait to see how this new era we're about to enter in women's sports and women's in the WNBA, the door is going to open for everyone. I think
Agreed.
everybody's gonna eat, and I'm really excited to see everybody eat, and I'm hoping I could get something to eat and we could eat too. So, um,
Amen.
as far as CBA talks, that's all I've got. I think all of our hearts and minds are clear, and we're just gonna wait till we'll see. Next week is the expansion draft, so we're gonna be sat down and we're going to, well, Friday is that coin toss, this Friday the 27th. So expansion draft next week. So can't wait to see what players will be brought onto these new teams, especially with Portland and Toronto. I'm excited to see what players come back into the league, um, what players are going to be moved around, and then obviously players that they're going to pick up in the draft, and which is going to be on the 13th. So it's a lot of excitement. Oh, and before we go, because we are wrapping up, guys, um, tournament. Just give me your quick who you think is going to be in the final two. Let's not even gonna do final four, final two. Are your brackets completed? You know, I know they're probably shattered already. Mine are, but
Mine's definitely is.
yeah. Who you got finals?
In the finals, I had I think it was the committee knew what they were doing when they put UConn and South Carolina on the same side of the bracket.
Yeah.
Yeah, they knew absolutely what they were doing. I got UConn and UCLA in my championship game, and I got UConn winning because it's feeling like we're just once again living in UConn's world, and everybody else is just it's UConn's world, and we're just living in it. So I got them repeating.
Mm-hmm. How about you?
Looking back in my bracket, I think I'm the same way. I think I have UConn, UCLA. I think AZ and UConn get back to back. Although on the other side, I wouldn't be surprised if Texas figures UCLA out and gets to that final and makes it a little more interesting. But UConn's such a machine at this point. I don't see how they don't get number 13.
I'm looking at my hold on, look up my bracket real quick just to make sure I say something. I say what the teams on mine are still in the tournament. Hold on. Um, I have UConn and Texas. That's the final two. I also have UConn taking it all because once I saw that they had another undefeated season, I said, "Well, there goes that." So I have UConn winning. Honestly, when it comes to the women's tournament this year, I'm just like, the best team win. I'm not necessarily rooting for any team in specific. I'm just like, let the best team win. I think it is going to be UConn. I would love Texas to win if they were to beat UConn because I would love to see Sid get a chip. Um, but at the same time, I'm just excited to see just a good tournament. Now on the men's side, while I typically haven't really paid attention to the men's side of NCAA in a long time, this is a St. John's household because, you know, someone in this house, aka hubby, is a proud graduate of St. John's University. He is Team Red Storm. So we are a St. John's. And St. John's is just like has us a special place in my heart because number one, New York. I went crazy with my men's ballot and I sent it to y'all. And I know it was delusional. But you have to understand, we had like 4 teams from New York. 4 or 5 teams from New York. 3 of them were from the tri-state area alone. So when I was like, wait a minute, LIU, Hofstra, and St. John's, like yes, my bracket was obnoxious, and I had St. John's versus Hofstra in the finals. Of course, Hofstra's not going to be in the finals. But first of all, fix your face. It's not because it's not because I felt like Hofstra's like because in my head I'm like, could you imagine the NCAA tournament championship? Long Island versus Queens, Long Island versus New York City. Like you have to be from there to understand what I'm talking about. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying?
right.
So however, Hofstra didn't make it. Shout outs to them though. They fought hard, but they didn't make it to the Sweet 16. But you know who did at the buzzer? St. John's. So I
Ooh.
actually have my final championship game, St. John's versus Arizona. And Arizona, I don't really know much about them. I know obviously Bryce is in that program, Bryce James. I know that from everything I've seen and read and heard, they are the most complete team and probably one of the favorites to take it all the way. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna trust the pundits and everyone's, opinions. And then I said, what team would I love to see? And baby, if we could see St. John's in the finals, like I was looking for merch that was like merch that said something along the lines of like spouse of of St. John's alum. Just like you have to understand.
Mm.
My husband graduated from there. My best friend graduated. One of my best friends graduated from there. My senior year of college, I had because I had to do an extra semester to take over a class. So I only had class 2 days out the week. So and I had a one of those days I had a gap between one of my classes, and it was a gap of like 7 hours. Like it was like I had my last class ended at like 10, 11, like 11 a.m. and my next class didn't start till like 6 or 7, like 6 o'clock. I would literally take the train from the Bronx, from Pelham Bay in the Bronx
Mm.
into Queens, and I'll go post up on St. John's campus with her, and then go back to campus at that evening. It has a special place in my heart.
Mm.
The arena has such a place in my heart. I know so many people who went to St. John's and graduated. I had got accepted into St. John's. It was one of my top schools I wanted to go to, but I went to with the school that gave me more financial aid. So that's how that worked out. So St. John's has a special place in my heart, like going to Greek parties, step competitions, like everything. So it's home in a way, like a home from away from home. So I am team Red Storm for so many reasons. So yeah. But
Sounds like a
if
plan.
they were to get eliminated at any point, then I'm not watching the men's one anymore. I'm gonna focus on the women's. I'm only here for St. John's. That's it. I ain't here for nobody else but them. So,
Nah,
I didn't even
good.
fill out a men's bracket.
Huh?
I didn't even fill out a men's bracket.
I wouldn't have. So sometimes I fill out the men's bracket just for fun, but when I saw like they were like, oh, St. John's made they won
Big East.
the Big East for the first time in how many years? I was like, oh, we got a shot. St. John's is
Yeah.
back. And I saw Hofstra. I said, well, Hofstra's back.
Hmm.
Hofstra basketball's back? They're
Mm.
like, when were you in the fold? Okay, come on,
Hey,
hometown heroes.
New York basketball has always been up.
Nah,
New York and New
I,
Jersey basketball has always been
They,
up.
they had a
no,
moment. They had a
no.
moment. No,
Don't let the marketing campaign fool you, baby. We ain't been up in a long time. We can market some shit. Okay. New York Knicks is still one of the most profitable uh sports teams in the world. But don't let it fool you. Well, no, they've been doing well the last few seasons, obviously.
Mm.
But you know, but we'll see what happens, right? Because now we have St. John's in the Sweet 16. Knicks are doing really well. I don't know what's going on with the Nets. Haven't heard much from them. Syracuse,
no,
they just hired Jerry McNamara, who is they just hired him from Siena College. So they just announced his hiring yesterday and today. And if you don't know who Jerry McNamara is, he was also on the championship winning team with Carmelo Anthony. So it's a big deal. It's like a coming home. And now he's coaching Melo's son, Cayenne, who's also at Syracuse. So it's a big deal. So
Oh yeah.
I know Syracuse women have been in the tournament a few times over the last few years and have done pretty well. I've gotten pretty far, not deep but far enough. Probably like what Elite Eight, I think, of 1 year they got.
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens going forward. We'll see. But
We determined.
this is a longer episode than I thought. I thought we were going to talk for like an hour max, and it's going on 2. But it's okay because we had a lot to talk about, and I hope you guys listened all the way through. If you did, thank you. If you didn't, I hope you revisit this conversation at some point. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for just continuing to support us. Again, congratulations to the ladies of the WNBA for this historic, groundbreaking, and generational CBA that you guys signed. We are inspired and we just cannot wait to see what comes next. Happy 30th to the WNBA as well. And yeah, we will see you guys next episode. Peace.
Peace.